Okay, we'll be waiting for people to join in. Okay, waiting up for people to come in. As always, giving a couple minutes for people to figure out all the technical issues and come and join us. In the meantime, what you're watching is a Meteor timeline that I put together, listing all the releases and slowly updating it with more and more information. Okay, still waiting for people to come in. I already got a question, which I will answer once we get to the point of presentation. Okay. All right, let's give people one more minute while we have reached version 1.2, the Meteor history. Just a reminder, there are polls on the Pathable platform where you can ask your question or There's also one quick question if you have ever made a presentation at a conference. So, and also you have the presentation itself, which we will start in a moment, available to download the slides. And you can also use the chat either in the Zoom call or on the Pathable platform to ask me a question. I'm monitoring both of them. But let's jump to something more funnier. And it's been 5 minutes till start. I think that's good enough time as any to jump to the presentation. All right, everybody on board, and let's get started. So hello, everybody. My name is Meteor Prague. You might know me as storyteller on the forums. I have been with Meteor since 2014. I am the Meteor Commit Packages maintainer, contributor, and I'm also the founder of Meteor Impact. And also I'm contributing to Meteor as well. I have been presenting on conferences since 2008, actually, not 9, 8, where I volunteered to make a quick presentation about creative writing and world building. And then they decided to put me into the largest room right in front of the largest audience before any prior experiences. So that was my baptism through fire. So what we'll be covering today are the basics, how to get started, and I'm looking forward to the discussion towards the end and your questions, because that's usually where can kind of get to the meat of, if you have any problems or anything else. So I'll be covering, your topic, but look out for that, what to go for with your audience, your venue, be that, a real life venue or online venue like this, how to structure a presentation, manage it, and how to manage your technology or what you should prepare. And then finally, probably the most, say, problematic or difficult topic for most people is actually speaking and presenting itself. So let's jump right into it. First things first about the topic, how are you connected to the topic itself? And if it's an advanced topic, are you an authority in the field? What is it that makes you specifically qualified to talk about the topic? If you notice at the beginning of the presentation, I've started speaking about where I started my speaking, and it's just the length of time itself. And then, I could probably provide more example as well where I've been speaking. So kind of to finish on this point is, as I mentioned, I started with a convention with anime manga, and that grew into larger and larger conventions. And then eventually I started speaking at professional conferences as well, primarily with Meteor Impact. My biggest conference where I spoke, I had a room with about 800 people listening to me. So I have quite experiences with talking with large audiences. So you need to first kind of, when you're thinking, okay, what am I going to speak about? What makes me uniquely connected? What makes, what would make people interested into, listening to me on the topic? If especially this is especially important to think about when you're talking about advanced topic. If you are having like an introductory topic like this, you don't have to be, the authority in the field or anything like that, because that is not the point. It can also goes with your audience, figuring out who your audience is as well, which I'll cover in the next slide. Especially, with advanced topic, if you are referencing anything, make sure that it's referenced properly, either in the presentation notes or right in the presentation where you show, okay, what is the source that I am referencing to, or where people can find more information. If you notice in the description of this talk, I have put some links to some of the technologies I'll be mentioning later on. Another big thing, when researching a topic is to figure out what you will be covering and what you will have to leave out. And that's especially important in regards to time. You need to figure out what is the main thing that you want to convey, because usually there is a lot of information that can be talked about. So if you are introducing Meteor, what is the big things that you'll be focusing on to introduction, and because there is a lot of things that you can go and cover, from just building a basic website to deployments to scaling. And things like scaling is probably not something you will be covering in an introductory talk. The same thing with deployment. Probably in case of Meteor, you just mentioned, oh, it's just one command and that's it. You don't have to worry about anything. And the details about how to do continuous integration and stuff like that, that's for another talk. So making sure that you kind of pace yourself properly, because it's a very common mistake with beginners, presenters, and I've seen it a lot at anime conventions, or they come with a great topic, but they have done so much research, they have so much information, and they have they just want to convey that all, and that just usually kills the talk, because it's just getting out information without really interacting with the audience and trying to figure out what's more of what got their reaction and stuff like that. But also again, you have too much information, so you have to leave out, and that's also important to note. Again, there's a lot of other information, but that's a topic for another day. And with that coming all together is will that be enough to fill the allotted time? Usually if you have say a little bit more advanced topic or a broad topic, then you have to cut. But sometimes you have to be careful not to pick a topic that you can just talk and finish in say 10 minutes, and then you're just standing there having nothing else to say. So with this talk, I usually, or in general with any talk, I usually look on how many slides do I have, and I should think, okay, I can spend about 2 minutes on each slide, maybe more, depending on how heavy the topic is, how many pictures and other stuff I have there, and from that, I can time how much I have to talk about. So kind of already mentioned that. Another thing is also figuring what's your audience, or who is your audience. And from that, you will be also figuring a lot of other things. So first of all, you need to figure out, what is your connection to the audience? Are you to them an authority? Are you somebody who is a peer talking about something interesting? And stuff like that. With that, again, who is the audience will be what language are you going to use. If you are going to be speaking at a professional scientific conference, say about black holes, then you're going to use different language and go much more in depth, as if you were just kind of giving introduction to black holes or wormholes to a general audience that just comes to a general sci-fi conference, stuff like that. So that's very important to kind of measure what way should I approach it, what is going to be the best way to be engaging to the audience, and is my language going to be appropriate? Will they understand what I'm talking about, or am I just going to look that I'm trying to be above them, but looking that I'm much smarter than that? With that also goes back again, as with everything, everything is interconnected. Is your topic appropriate for the audience? So you probably don't want to talk to religious zealots about how for example great eating meat is, or other things that they don't approve of, or and again goes to your venue and stuff like that. Also timing of if your talk is, for example, 18+, it probably should not be in the morning or in the middle of the day. It should be probably at night during the convention and stuff like that. And with that also, you have to kind of communicate your expectation to the audience as well, especially if it's like a more professional topic. You might want to say, I will be taking question at the end of each slide or at the end of the presentation, stuff like that. With the platform we are using in this case, you can write in the questions just a moment. Looks like we're just talking about that. We have no sound. Just a quick technical check. Guys, if you can jump quickly to the chat and tell me if everything is fine. Looks like somebody's not getting any sound. And if you are hearing me fine, you just spam okay or something along those lines. Okay. So it looks like it's just one person. Sorry about that. And where was I? Yeah, so clearly communicate, your expectation again, if you cannot hear or kind of check with people and tell them, what do you expect from them? If it's more of a leisurely presentation, then it can more be of more of a discussion where you kind of the lead talker, but a lot of the time you're just going to get input from the audience. And usually the presentation, if it's not like in a professional one where you have, or a technical one, where you have a lot of talks, communication with the audience, then those are kind of the best presentation that people have enjoyed the most, because then it's more of a discussion and two-way street for everybody. But you also have to be very careful in that, not to lose, say, control. Again, that kind of goes back to your topic, back to your structure. So next big important point is your venue, and this kind of starting more towards the technical stuff, which sometimes gets underestimated and people are, surprised. And that's kind of like the classical one. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? That is to, figure out all those things. So know where you will be presenting, what are the capabilities of the venue, what are the limitations. That's also very important to know. So if you'll be like flight place, and if you can go in ahead of the time to check the venue to figure out, for example, what is the lighting, are people going to see well on the screen, or should I choose different colors so that they can see better with the light coming in and stuff like that? Or will I be blinded? Will I have to constantly, shield my eyes to see, if anybody is raising their hands and stuff like that? Or will I have, assistants? For example, in case of Meteor Meetups, which is on Pathable platform, know that you can go in as presenter 10 minutes before the presentation and set up everything, test everything. You can even ask other, for example, the community coordinator to come in and check that everything is working properly, and that your sound is going through. So you have those 10 minutes before. Then, for example, know that you can go over 10 minutes over your allotted time, that there is this backup, but after which it will be just straight cut and you won't be able to continue on that, know if it's recorded or not. So you have to also go in, try those things. And oftentimes it's very easy, like with Meteor Meetups, just to create a trial session so you can go in, try out everything with somebody else and have everything ready for when it's showtime. Another thing is, be aware of, the different requirements of the venue. For example, with Meteor Impact and Meteor Meetups, you can have presentation templates. Should you use them? Then, if yes, then put everything into them. And then things like publishing your presentation, like I've published the files of the slides so you can refer to them in the future. any additional recordings, what links you need to provide. It kind of goes also with having backups, so having the presentation multiple formats. The one I publish is in PDF, but if needed to, I could publish it in PowerPoint format or LibreOffice format or anything else that my software can handle. And if it's like an offline venue, is it going to have there be like a computer? You should just bring a USB stick with your presentation. In that case, you should definitely have multiple file formats for your presentation. And you should probably always have some sort of your own backup in case, due to the heat, the computer flares up and suddenly they have only end of the cable. And with speaking of cables, have conversions. Maybe they have only VGA for the projector or only HDMI. So make sure that you have that covered. Most of the times the venue, if it's like a convention, will have, or conference, they will have different transmissions ready for you to use, so it shouldn't be a problem. But at the end of the day, the presentation, how it turns out, is up to you as the presenter. So having those things ready is super important. That applies even more when you're doing this online, because the only thing that what you get here is the transmission. Everything else that's happening on your screen, behind you, and on your computer, that's your responsibility. So you have to have all of that in order, and again, have everything tested and ready to go. That kind of goes with structuring your presentation. If template is provided, follow the template. Let me just myself. As you kind of seen with myself, how I started with introducing myself and asking some question. In this case, just asking through polls. This actually works much better if you have a live audience that can reply immediately. So it's usually good to ask some question about the audience, how kind of to gauge the relations to the topic. So in my case, the poll question I ask, if anybody has presented already at a conference. So, and speaking of which, let's take a look. So far we have, yes. Another big thing is the presentation. And again, that's a big common mistake of beginner presenters, is not there for you to read from. It's for you to provide you guidelines, to show pictures, to show quotes or code or some other animation or thing that you cannot say yourself. That's why they are bullet points. They are not to be paragraphs of what you'll be speaking, reading. Those are just highlights or important things that you want people to take away from. Another big thing, or especially since you are technical, explore the different option of the presentation software you are using, and limit the use of distracting things like animations. So in this case, I don't have animations, but probably the only ones that are kind of reasonable are maybe light transition animations, or if you have very good reason to provide some cool animation in the presentation itself. But normally you don't want that, because that takes away attention from you and what you're saying and brings it back to the screen. And unless it's an image or a graph or something that you are actually showing people, you don't want that. So now finally to the big main point about technology, as we've probably been waiting for, is how to do this online. As I mentioned before, survey the technology of the venue, test it in advance if you can, if they use different operating system and stuff like that. Today, when you're doing presentations, screen sharing is not enough. And if you actually look on this, I can play with this, and because I'm using OBS, but why screen sharing isn't enough. In this case of Zoom, what's going to happen is this me showing myself my camera is just going to become little thing over here, and I kind of want to be more of a presence. And then another thing is you are losing control to a certain degree of what was actually showing up on the screen. This is where things like OBS comes in, which is technology that's used by streamers. There are also StreamLabs and other things. So if you go for a couple of days, maybe on Twitch or YouTube, and look on what people are doing, what people are watching with streaming, and what technologies they are using. If you go more to technology channels, they will be more than happy to tell you about it. And with this, go familiarize yourself with the software, and in order to make it look as seamless as possible. You don't want to then have long times where you're just trying to find where everything is. It's good if, in this case, you have at least 2 monitors. In my case, I have 2 monitors, and then I have another laptop here where I can monitor the chat and everything else. As you can see, I'm also using OBS right now. And I'll get, actually, let's see let's try if we can show a bit of OBS in action. So with OBS, I can easily select, in this case, what type of screen do I want to show. So I can just show, say, WebStorm, or in this case, Firefox, or nothing at all, or just the full screen. And I can then go in and drag my OBS, which is going to create this crazy infinite pool. And then we have different screens for OBS to kind of go through. Or I can just switch back to having a full camera. But related to technology is you should also quit all notifications, so that kill sound from all your phones. In this case, I kill sound to my phone, kill sound to my laptop, and also make sure that I disable any notification. Usually you have them. If we go back to, say, the full screen, I'll have to call the presentation and this as well. Actually, I have them all. I have 2 screens, so I have it on the other one, but there's on Mac and on Linux, there is an option to have a do not disturb setting set. I think I remember it also goes for, there's some sort of option for Windows as well. And always start it up when you are starting your presentation. So let's, if you go to a offline venue, make sure you have everything charged, because you don't know if you will be able to plug it in and stuff like that. So that also kind of goes, set to power saving options if possible. Have your software up to date, but don't update everything just before presentation, because that's usually where a lot of issues comes in. And finally, as was a question earlier about live coding session, how to manage them, stuff like that, which the question was how to avoid confusion and looking up for some sort of missing code. If you're doing live coding sessions, you should pretty much prepare all the steps that you do ahead of time, and have which means you will test all of that it works exactly as you want. You should record all the changes, what you do in a text file, something that you'll have at hand ready. So if you suddenly blank out, you can just quickly go there, jump, copy the code, and paste it into the editor that you are working with. So that's you know, kind of how you can avoid easy problems with, you know, live coding session. Also, another thing, good thing is to start with a joke. Okay, live coding session. Let's see how many things can go wrong and stuff like that. It's an option. For offline venues, also consider using some additional technologies like things like clicker like this, which usually also have a laser, so you can, you know, point out to things behind you or on the screen. Especially good if you have like large screen and it's like an actual lecture hall. And with live coding session online like this, again, this is where OBS comes in. And in this case, you know, I can create WebStorm here, and I can then start. So I can make it smaller like that. And behind this, I have my browser. So I can then, you know, rearrange these windows as I need to, and or just, you know, disappear them for the moment as I want to. So again, this is where the power of OBS comes in, where you just go in and adjust it as you want to. This is especially helpful if you have only one screen, or if you have like, you know, two screens, because if you have kind of two screens, then transmitting that is not as easy. Usually what would be best would be having actually three screen, because on two screen, you know, for your presentation or for your coding, and then one additional screen where you can manage OBS. So that's bring us to the last and final point, and about right on time, is about your speaking itself. First of all, it's tough. If you are not used to it and suddenly have to speak, you know, before people, that can be pretty tough. With the online world right now, it's a bit more kind of the opposite of problem, because if you are used to talk with people, having the feedback with people, and now you're just speaking to the screen, and you don't have that feedback, that can be sometimes very difficult. So again, you have to kind of practice and learn. There are resources like speaking.io where you can read more about different things. In general, you know, when starting to speak is, you know, speak in front of mirror to test your timing, to see how is your body language, and you know, general, like, and you know, speaking yourself. One of the worst part, I think, or a lot of people have problem hearing themselves. So, but sometimes it's good to have yourself to record yourself and then play it back. If you can kind of overcome the, say, instinctual icky factor about listening to yourself, then it's good, because then you can kind of see what you're making. You know, say common mistakes. You know, if you're using filler words, or making, you know, having problem with pronunciation and stuff like that. The next good step is to present to a close circle of friends, to get, you know, feedback on your presentation topic, or maybe some of your colleagues. So, for example, if you're going to speak with Meteor Impact, first good step might be, you know, to do the presentation for your colleagues in the company or just your friends. The next step from that would be a smaller audience. So pick up one of the Meteor meetups, tell them that, you know, we want to do this talk at Meteor Impact, and that we want to kind of get the feedback on that. Do that. We want to record it, and it will be, you know, people mostly focus on your presentation and anything else that you need to fill in. But at the end of the day, the most important part is experience and knowing what you're talking about. And with that, we are going to questions and answers. So if you have any questions, now it's a good point. There's a question: how do I connect from OBS to Zoom? The newest version of OBS has, even for Linux, and which I'm using, has option to start a virtual camera. So you will have to go to settings, set up a virtual camera, and then it's super easy. You just click start virtual camera. After that, you start Zoom, because if you start it when Zoom is active, there's a chance that the Zoom will not pick it up. But then you are going to see that you have a OBS source camera, and it just pick it up like a normal camera. It gets a bit more tricky if you want to also connect all the sounds, because right now my sound from my microphone goes straight to Zoom. It doesn't go through OBS, but it's also possible to do, but it's more tricky and difficult. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for your attention, and let's jump to the Meteor social, which is starting just right now, and we can talk face to face, and it's not recorded, so you don't have to worry about asking stupid questions like that. By the way, there are no stupid questions. So yeah, again, thank you for your attention, and I'll see you in the social.